Coming up on 5 Minute News. Bolsonaro supporters storm Brazil Congress. Kevin McCarthy faces more problems as House votes on rules package. And Biden visits US-Mexico border to quell migrant crisis. It's Monday, January 9. I'm Anthony Davis. Supporters of Brazil's far-right former president Jair Bolsonaro invaded and defaced the country's Congress, presidential palace, and Supreme Court on Sunday in a grim echo of the U.S. Capitol invasion 2 years ago by fans of disgraced former President Donald Trump. There were no immediate reports of deaths or injuries from their rampage, but the invaders left a trail of destruction, throwing furniture through the smashed windows of the presidential palace, flooding parts of Congress with a sprinkler system, and ransacking ceremonial rooms in the Supreme Court. The sight of thousands of yellow and green-clad protesters running riot in the Capitol capped months of tension following the October 30th presidential vote. The uprising, which lasted a little over 3 hours, underlined the severe polarization that still grips the country days after the inauguration of leftist President Lula da Silva, who defeated Bolsonaro in the October election. Lula, who announced a federal security intervention in Brasilia lasting until January 31st, after Capitol security forces were initially overwhelmed by the invaders, blamed Bolsonaro for inflaming his supporters after a campaign of baseless allegations about potential election fraud. The president's allies also raised questions about how public security forces in the capital Brasilia were so unprepared and easily overwhelmed by rioters who'd been planning on social media for days to gather for weekend demonstrations. Bolsonaro, an acolyte of Donald Trump who has yet to concede defeat, peddled the false claim that Brazil's electronic voting system was prone to fraud, spawning a violent movement of election deniers. After 5 days of disarray and 15 rounds of floor votes, newly elected House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is set to face an instant challenge today as the House votes on a new rules package. A handful of establishment Republicans indicated on Sunday they may withhold their support for the rules unless more details of concessions made to ultra-conservative lawmakers during a week of torrid negotiations are unveiled. McCarthy ascended to the speakership late on Friday after winning over support from holdout members of the hard-right Freedom Caucus, who had leveraged their power due to the slim margin of control Republicans hold in the House. But full details of those negotiations have not been made public, leading to speculation that McCarthy has guaranteed the group positions on key committees and thrust them and the former president further into power. The package itself was published on Friday evening and includes a measure to allow a single member to force a motion to vacate the speakership, already weakening McCarthy's position, and a key demand of the holdout Conservatives. It also includes reinstating a provision to allow lawmakers to propose amendments to appropriations bills, adds a 72-hour window for members to read bills before they vote, and a commitment to vote on legislation on term limits for members of Congress. But anonymous briefings have indicated that the holdout Republicans also attempted to negotiate more leverage over key committees, including approvals over a third of positions on the powerful Rules Committee, which is responsible for what proposed legislation reaches the floor of the House. The divisions highlight the dilemmas posed by such a slim Republican majority in the House. But speaking on Sunday, Jim Jordan, a Freedom Caucus member and the expected new chair of the House Judiciary Committee, predicted the rules package would pass today and defended the chaos of last week. The House Judiciary Committee, under Jordan's leadership, is expected to launch a highly charged investigation into the U.S. Justice Department over purported allegations of political bias, partly in relation to its ongoing inquiry of the January 6 insurrection. But a number of Republican lawmakers have been implicated in the investigation themselves, including Jordan, leaving open questions around conflicts of interest. President Joe Biden walked a muddy stretch of the US-Mexico border and inspected a busy port of entry on Sunday on his first trip to the region, a visit shadowed by the fraught politics of immigration. At his first stop, the president observed as border officers in El Paso demonstrated how they search vehicles for drugs, money, and other contraband. Next, he traveled to a dusty street with abandoned buildings and walked along a metal border fence. His last stop was the El Paso County Migrant Services Center, but there were no migrants in sight. As he learned about the services offered there, he asked an aid worker, "If I could wave the wand, what should I do?" The visit seemed designed to showcase the smooth operation to process legal migrants, weed out smuggled contraband, and humanely treat those who have entered illegally, creating a counter-narrative to Republicans' claims of a crisis situation equivalent to an open border. Asked what he's learned by seeing the border firsthand and speaking with the officers who work along it, Biden said, "They need a lot of resources. We're going to get it for them." You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.